Hey team, Yasin here, and in this training we are going to be going over your transformation product. We are going to go over the 30,000 foot overview of your transformation product, what are the pillars of your transformation product, and all of the nooks and crannies in between. Let's go ahead and hop right into it. So this training is important because we are continuing our theme inside of this module by putting your transformation program together. And so what we're going to be doing inside of this specific training is that we are going to be going over your transformation program as an overview, and then the rest of this module after this training as well as after the next training is going to be all about in the trenches, putting in the work, all about taking action. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. As always, we do have the training outline available for your reference inside of the guide. And so the very first question that you might have inside of this training is, hey, what is my transformation program, right? What is your transformation program? So your transformation program is essentially your product, okay? It's the process that you take your students through that facilitates the transformation in their life. And so other words that we sometimes use to replace the word program include your product, your service, your fulfillment, right? As well as I'm sure there's many other words that you could think of as well. And so what we do is we personally like to use the word product because it gives us a tangible feeling that we are creating, building, or developing something, okay? So essentially our program is our product. And so when we use the word product, we can also have things like product development, product research and development, right? R&D. You can also go ahead and put on your hat as a product developer, right? And so many other cool understandings and cool lenses that lend themselves to the word product. And so this is why oftentimes you will hear us use the word product, because we really think that it's a nice term that goes ahead and makes all of that abstractness around the program and the transformation, it makes it feel more real and more tangible. Cool. So now that you have a kind of quick understanding of, transformation program, product, let's go ahead and next talk about the pillars of your transformation product. Okay. So what's going to happen is that there are going to be 3 pillars of your transformation product. And those 3 pillars are going to be number 1, training, number 2, community, and number 3, support. Okay. So this is what it is going to look like visually. You got your transformation program, and then it is held up by the 3 pillars. And the 3 pillars again, training, community, and support. And so a couple quick notes about this. Number 1, this is very important. Number 1 is that these are not customer facing terms. Okay. These are not things that we explain like, hey, my program, I got training, community, and support. It's not something that we use for marketing language. It's more so what we use as terms internally when we are talking about our product and our transformation program. And so that is note number 1. Note number 2 is that we don't always call or name these 3 pillars the same way that they are labeled above. Okay. So even though, for example, it says, okay, this is training, as you're going to see here in a second when I go ahead and explain to you what training actually is, it might not actually be training the way that you think training actually is. Okay. So that's a second note that's very important to understand, is that we don't always call or name or label these 3 pillars the way that they are above. So having said that, let's go ahead and now talk about each of these 3 pillars in detail. And so the very first one we're going to go ahead and talk about is pillar number 1, training. So the first pillar of a transformation program is training. Now, before you go ahead and freak out on me and you say, training, like kind of like the training I'm going through right now, like there's no way I can do this. I can't do this. This is not going to work for me. Hear me out for a second, okay? So do you remember that note that I went ahead and said just a second ago, right? Even though we call it training, it doesn't always have to be training the way that we think about it, right? Training can be many things and can take many different forms. Training could refer to a one-on-one Zoom call. Training could be an online classroom like the one that you're going through right now. Training could be an in-person workshop, right? It could have many, many different forms and many, many different labels. Essentially, anything that is the bucket container of the curriculum, of the golden path that you are walking the student through so that way they can have their transformation, that is essentially the bucket that we call training. Okay. Does that make sense? It has many different labels, but just for the sake of being able to have something that we can talk about, that's why we call it training, but it doesn't have to be training the way that people might have the connotation of the word training. And so some of the many things that could be in the bucket of training could be, let's say, the content, the training modules, right? It could be the coaching calls, the one-on-one sessions, the training portal, the resources and activities, so many other things that could be considered training. And so all of these things fall into that bucket of training. And like I just said a second ago, is that the training is the yellow brick road that the student follows in order for them to get to their desired situation, their transformation. Okay. So it's kind of like the curriculum. It's the path that the person is following in in order to be able to get to their desired situation and solve the problem that you promised them, okay? And then on top of that, this training curriculum, that yellow brick road, can also have differences based off of the time, right? So it could be a yellow brick road for a transformation program that's 21 days, it could be 90 days, it could be 12 weeks, it could be 6 months, it could be 1 year. All of that are different variations. Remember, I'm just giving you the 30,000 foot overview, okay? Don't worry, we are going to be giving you step by step exactly how you are going to be setting up your training, and we are going to be giving you all of the training scripts and all of that as well. For right now, I just want you to stick with me and understand the overall concept, okay? So that is pillar number 1 of the 3 pillars of your transformation product, which is training. The second pillar that we're going to go ahead and talk about right now is the pillar of community, okay? Now, similar to training, community can also be known by many different names, okay? So community could literally be a Facebook group. It could be a circle.so group. It could be a Slack channel. It could be a Discord group. It could be a WhatsApp group. There are so many things that could be considered community, right? Anything that helps your student connect with other students is what is considered community, okay? Now, not only that, the goal of the community pillar inside of a transformation program is not only to connect students to each other, but it's also there in order to help take off the burden from you and your team, possibly in the future, of having to keep the student engaged. And so it takes that burden off of you and the team of being busy with trying to keep the student engaged inside of the program, okay? So with the community, what happens is that the student can see others engaging in the training and the curriculum, so that way they don't feel as alone, okay? And so what it does is it takes the pressure off of you and your team from having to be the center of attention. Again, remember, don't worry, we're going to be showing you step by step, click by click, how to set up your community, how to run it, all of that kind of stuff. Right now, I'm just going over the overview, and so I just want you to stick with me and understand the overall concept. Beautiful. So that is the second pillar of the 3 pillars inside of your transformation product. And then finally, we have the third pillar, and the third pillar is support. Now, exactly the same way like we talked about for training and community, support can also be known by many things as well, right? Support could be the weekly coaching calls, which would be a different structure than the training coaching calls that would be from like the other pillar, right? It could be text message accountability. It could be a specific assigned support person that would be different than the coach, maybe who's giving the instruction, right? It could be the coaching clinics, which would be like group coaching calls that would happen. It could be weekly accountability check-ins. There are many different things that support could be, right? And a lot of other things that are not listed on there that could be included in the bucket of support, okay? So ultimately, whatever you are doing in order to support your student, so that way they will actually be able to make it through that yellow brick road, what is going to facilitate them getting through your training curriculum, that is what we call support. Again, don't worry, we're going to be giving you the entire process of how to provide support to your students, the text messages, the campaigns, the templates. Right now, I'm just going ahead and laying the foundations of your understanding, so that way you understand the overall concept that we're talking about. Now, here's the funny thing about this, okay? You might be looking at these 3 pillars of your transformation program, of your transformation product, and you say training, community, and support. Does any of this look familiar? Yeah, you're right? You have been inside of a transformation product all of this time already. Do you remember what we talked about in the evolution of a remote wellness practitioner all the way back in module 1? We talked about one-on-one transformation, group, online, and hybrid, right? All along this entire time, you have been a part of a transformation product, right? The only difference is that we've just been at this a little bit longer than you have, okay? And so this has been the exact same concept that you've been going through all along, okay? Now, I want to make sure that you are careful with this, is be careful not to judge your beginning to our end. Don't judge your chapter 1 to our chapter 7 or 8. We've been developing our transformation product for over 3 years. We're 7 iterations deep at this point, okay? And so over time, the more and more product development that you do, your product will also be just as good, if not better, than the Remote Wellness Academy classroom. Why would it potentially be better? Because we're going to be giving you everything that we have, exactly the step-by-step, click-by-click on how we actually created this entire company. You are going to be able to take it and you're going to be able to make it better in the future for yourself. Pretty cool, huh? I know. And so it's kind of like being in that one movie, Inception. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it's like dreams within dreams within dreams. It's like, oh snap, I didn't recognize it, but I've actually been inside of a transformation product this entire time. And so the cool thing about this is, like I told you all the way back in module 1, is that all of the things that are being done to you, it's not a matter of you just going through it as a student. It's a matter of paying attention to it and say, wait a second, this is exactly the same things that I can model inside of my own remote wellness practice, because they are helping facilitate my own transformation and helping me get from my current situation to my desired situation. And so that is the really cool thing about this entire experience that you've been going through, is that not only is it a transformation for yourself, but you can also pay attention to how everything is being delivered and really start to learn a lot from that as well. I know. It's pretty cool. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and bring all of this together so that way we can go ahead and make sense of what it is that we've talked about, right? So training, community, and support. These 3 pillars are going to make up the foundation of your 90-day transformation program, okay, that you're going to be learning about throughout this module. And then your 90-day transformation program is going to have these 3 pillars, okay? And so you're also going to notice that there is overlap between each of these 3 pillars. It's not like, hey, training stands by itself, community stands by itself, and support stands by itself, because technically, if you think about it, right, you can have some element of community inside of your training, right? So they're kind of connected. So like example, what like we have inside of this classroom, at the end of every single training, we have you post inside of the community, right? So that is a connection between training and community, right? In the same way, your community also acts as support, because that way your students can get questions answered inside of the community. And so as a result, community and support are also connected. And so each of these 3 pillars doesn't live individually. They all live together, and they exist as a unit, as a system, okay? And so the biggest thing that you have to understand with this is that your product is not just one thing, okay? Your product is not the coaching calls by themselves. It's not the community by itself. It's not the support and accountability by itself. It's not the activities and the worksheets by themselves. Your product is the combination of all of these things and more. Your product is the entire experience that a student goes through for their transformation, okay? So what happens is that your product becomes more than each of the individual parts, okay? So in a transformation program, transformation happens at levels that you don't even see as an RWP. It's more than the content, it's more than the system, it's more than the follow-up, it's more than the training, it's more than all of that. What happens that when you combine these 3 pillars together, what happens is that there's an effect called synergy that takes place. What is synergy? Synergy, as Aristotle put it, is that when something becomes the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Synergy is when you have 1 + 1 = 3. It's when you have training, community, and support, and you're like, oh, 3 pillars. But you all of a sudden get an exponential impact as a result of these 3 pillars coming together, okay? And so this synergy is what creates something called a flywheel effect when all of these 3 pillars come and work together. What is a flywheel effect? A flywheel in business is when each piece of your product builds on each other over time and eventually gains so much momentum that it kind of just grows by itself. And so this is how it works in the context that we're talking about it, is that the more students that you have, the more engaged your community gets. The more engaged your community gets, the more students love to interact and feel more support. The more the students feel more support, they end up going through the training and doing it more often. And then all of a sudden, when they go through the training more often, they get more results. And then when they get more results, guess what? They go and talk to everyone around them about your program. And then all of a sudden it feeds in even more students into the program. And then you go ahead and start all over again. And so it becomes this flywheel that starts to feed itself as a result of these 3 pillars coming together. Each pillar feeds the next and they all work together. And so this is what it looks like visually, right? It becomes a feedback loop that just gets better and better and better and better over time. And that is the power of these 3 pillars when you combine them inside of your transformation product. Are you starting to see why this is so much more powerful than charging per session or charging per hour or saying, hey, I have these bundles that you can buy from me, like, 6 coaching calls at a time or something like that? Because charging per session, what it does is it makes you into a commodity, right? So people will then price shop for the person with the cheapest cost per session. So instead of charging per session, you are learning to be able to charge per transformation. And then guess what? Transformation includes training, community, and support. And so the transformation transformation is your product, okay? And the transformation is essentially the bundle of value that makes it impossible for customers to actually price shop. What we're doing is we're creating a transformation bundle that is the perfect combination of training, community, and support. And so that way, when you charge $3,600 for your transformation program, it's not $3,600 divided by 12 equals $300 per coaching call, because the bundle isn't coaching calls, okay? Because there's no clear understanding of how much the other items in the bundle, quote unquote, are worth, because they're getting so much more than just a lame coaching call by itself, okay? Just as a quick side note there, in business terms, what I'm calling this bundle here, in business terms, that is what is referred to as an offer. Again, I'm not going to go into that right now, but I just want you to be familiar with the terminology, okay? So ultimately what you have to understand is that there's no how much you charge per coaching call or how much you charge per package of sessions or any of that stuff, okay? Otherwise, what ends up happening is that you become a commodity just like everybody else. And when there is a commodity and when you become a commodity, it is a race to the bottom in terms of pricing, because the person and the customer, what they're doing is they're just price shopping, and they're saying, okay, you know what? This person charges X amount per session. This person charges X amount per coaching call. But what you're doing is you're linking your product, your service to the desired transformation. You are saying, hey, I'm going to get you here. How much is that worth to you? Okay, you're solving the problem. And when you do it that way, all of a sudden, there is no price. Price is not an issue anymore because of the fact that you are delivering and promising a transformation. You're delivering an end result. You are selling a future and you are not selling features, okay? And so ultimately, that is why you want to make sure that you remember the 4 cardinal rules of your minimum viable product, right? We talked about those things, is that we only talk about transformation and results because students don't care about how much we charge per hour. They only care about how much the value of the transformation means for them. Okay, so again, think back to when you joined the RWA program. Did you join the academy because you knew exactly how many modules there were and how many trainings were in each module, right? Did you join because you cared about how many coaching calls there were every single week? No, you knew the end goal that you wanted, you knew the desired situation and the promise that was made, and it all sounded good and made sense to you on the 30,000 foot view, and that's all that matters. And so the same applies for your program as well. Just because in the course of this entire module, you are going to start to understand the process of the training, the community, and the support, right? And all of the details around that, that does not mean that you go out and vomit all of these details on your prospects. Don't forget the 4 cardinal rules that we talked about in the previous training, okay? Because Coach Malik, Coach Cole, or any of the other RWA coaches, when they were on the call with you to go ahead and join the program, did they get all excited and nervous and they were like, okay, you know what? I got to go ahead and give them all of the A to Z details of what's in the program? Of course not. Why? Was it because we were trying to be deceptive and because we were trying to cheat people? No, of course not. Because from the position, from the vantage point, from the perspective of the person who has not yet joined the program, they will never understand truly what it is that you are saying until they are in the program. And so trying to tell them all of these words and these concepts and all of this stuff that you take weeks to explain to your students and trying to tell them in a 30, 45-minute conversation, it doesn't mean anything to them. And what it does is it causes more obstacles that prevents them from taking the step of actually transforming their life. Okay, so what's going to end up happening is they're going to get caught up in feature brain and asking questions that they are not in the position to be able to understand the answers of those questions. And so again, I'm going to remind you is that for your MVP, okay, the 4 cardinal rules is that we sell futures, not features. Very, 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 very important to always understand and always remember. Now, after hearing that, some students at this point, right, we've gone over the overview of the 3 pillars. At this point, I want to go ahead and introduce a very big warning because some students are going to want to make this more complicated than it needs to be, okay? They're going to want to make this very complicated and have a lot of questions. But hear me out on this. It does not have to be complicated and you don't have to have a lot of questions. Just because you got a 30,000 foot overview just now does not mean that all of a sudden all of this is going to make sense to you, okay? But by the end of module 5, it will. And so you have to stick through the process because I'm not going to be able to condense an entire module's worth of information in one sentence, okay? So right now, you need to just keep moving, get through the training, and then once you've taken enough consistent action under your belt, and by the time you get to the end of module 5, you will be better informed to be able to ask great questions, and you will be in the perspective, in the vantage point of actually understanding the answers to those questions. And so this is not a time to get afraid. This is not a time to get overwhelmed. In fact, this is a time to get excited. Why? Because you are finally going to start seeing what your product looks like. Do you now see how this is so different than selling tchotchkes, spatulas, or knickknacks on Amazon? This is your transformation product income source. This is your product that cannot be lost or taken away. This is your product that is made up of the skills that you have invested into a timeless industry. This is your product that serves you and your family and puts food on the table for the rest of your life. This is your product that has the ability to help every single human being on the planet. This is your product that transforms the lives of others. This is your product that you can sell at the price of a car, $1,200, $2,400, $3,600 plus, because of how valuable it is. This is your product that has 80+% margins, okay? And so what you are learning right now is something that is completely different than any other industry and any other opportunity out there. Okay, so unlike in a physical product income source where you spend 3 to 6 months sourcing and manufacturing a product and then doing a product launch as product development, in this opportunity, you are spending 3 to 6 months getting your certification and understanding how this game is played. That is product development in this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Module 5. This is the scope of what it is that we are talking about, what it is that is happening here in Module 5 and inside of this entire program as a whole. And I cannot tell you how valuable this transformation is going to be for you, not only for yourself, to everybody around you, for your family, but for every person that interacts with you for the rest of your life because of the transformation that you were able to provide because you have learned to become valuable. Your ability to provide value both to yourself, both to your family, as well as to everyone around you, and most importantly, to the marketplace has exponentially gone up because you are going through this program and you're understanding that at the end of the day, you get paid based off the problem that you solved, and the problem that you solve is how you provide value. Period. And that is exactly what it is that we are doing inside of phase number 1 of this program, as well as specifically inside of Module 5. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. How exciting is this, right? Now, I do want to go ahead and answer a couple quick questions about this as we go ahead and get through this training. Is number 1 is, can I make this product my own? Okay, so the question that a student might ask is, can I change these 3 elements, these 3 pillars, and I want to tweak the program to be mine, right? Now, the answer to that question is yes. You have 100% permission to make your product amazing, but don't mess with these 3 pillars. These 3 pillars that we're going to walk you through here in Module 5 and Module 6 make up the foundation of the economics of the business model. And so here is my advice to you. My advice to you is to replicate before you iterate, okay? Before you say, I'm going to go ahead and put my special sauce on it, right? Before you go ahead and say, I'm going to put my special insert your name sauce on it. Before you do that, make sure that you can actually duplicate what it is that we are showing you first, because then you've actually earned the right to go ahead and make iterations, okay? Even if what it is that we talk about inside of this module is not perfectly your style, it's okay. Copy it first before you make iterations. And then once you get up and running, you've gotten traction, right? You've successfully replicated what it is that we recommend, then you can start tweaking and giving yourself a grade on how good your product is. You can say, hey, you know what? In my product, my training is like a 7 out of 10. My community is like a 6 out of 10. My support is like a 3 out of 10. And then once you have that traction, you can start working on improving your product, right? You will always be working on improving your product and making it better after you replicate what it is that we recommend. And so in the beginning, this is very important, is that we are going to be giving you the foundations of a great product to start with. And then after a while, right, after you've gone ahead and replicated what it is that we are providing to you, then all of a sudden that passion that you have is going to start to get infused with your product as you start to make tweaks with it over time. And then over time, the product is going to feel like yours. Remember, you got to expand your time horizon. You got to look more than just chapter 1, because it's going to be a chapter 2, a chapter 3, a chapter 4, a chapter 5 of your product. And so just because chapter 1, you're starting off by replicating what it is that we recommend, that is the foundation, okay? And then down the road, as you are tweaking your product after you've replicated what it is that we've provided, is that you're going to start to realize that, man, you know what? Having a great product and having a product that you're passionate about, everything else becomes easier when you have that in place. Everything in business and making an extraordinary income becomes easier when you have that solid product in place that feels like it's yours. But in the beginning, you want to make sure that for now, you replicate before you iterate. Because I can't tell you how many students say, okay, you know what? I've never done this before, but I'm going to start iterating. Well, how do you know what it is that you're iterating actually wasn't a foundational piece? And then all of a sudden you're not successful because of the fact that you've changed too much of the foundation. And so that is my recommendation. Number one, replicate before you iterate, and then you will have earned the right to be able to understand what is foundational and what it is that you can actually tweak. Beautiful. So that is the first question that I wanted to go ahead and address after we typically go ahead and explain the 3 pillars. That's the first question that comes up. The second question that typically comes up is, hey, is this really valuable, right? Like, Coach Yassine, this is great and all, right? I understand the 3 pillars, but are the 3 pillars really that valuable for people? Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and answer this question from 2 angles. Angle number 1 is what students actually need. And then angle number 2 is the power of your transformation program. So let's go ahead and talk about angle number 1, which is what students actually need. And so the question is, hey, what are you putting inside of these 3 pillars in order to make it very valuable for your students? Of course, like I said, we're going to provide that for you inside of this module. But what I want you to remember is that what we are selling is helping people transform their lives by getting to their desired situation, right? Because at the end of the day, that's all they really care about. We've already talked about this. I don't need to go over it again. But here's the thing. When you hear that and you hear, okay, we're helping people get to their desired situation, and specifically like, cool, I'm going to be focusing on health, right? When you hear that in the start, you're going to say, okay, you know what? That means that when I help them get to their desired situation, that means that I'm going to be helping them get to their perfect health, right? That's what their desired situation probably is. Or maybe I'm going to help them lose X amount of weight, right? That's the desired situation that they're trying to get to, right? Or something like that. And initially you'd think, yeah, that does make sense, right? That is the transformation that my students must be looking for, right? I got to help them get into perfect shape. I got to help them lose weight, all of that kind of stuff, right? Whatever is entailed with the health aspect of it, right? That might be initially what you think of when you think of, okay, health and getting to their desired situation. But that's actually not the entire picture, okay? Because if you remember what we talked about before, health is an infinite game. And so the transformation that the students need is not about getting into shape or losing X amount of weight, right? That's the surface level thing, right? Because if you really end up looking at it, if you help your students get to the point where they're in, quote unquote shape, perfect shape, or lost X amount of weight with your program, what happens is that as soon as they finish your program and they graduate and they're no longer in your program, what's going to happen? They're eventually going to end up right back where they started. And so they started off, they were overweight, in your program, you helped them lose weight, gain muscle, whatever it was. But then because health is an infinite game, they're going to end up right back where they were. Okay. And so this is the switch that I need you to be able to understand, is that when you realize this, you realize that the purpose of your transformation program is not to get them into perfect health and shape. Instead, the desired situation that your transformation program takes them to is what the student actually needs. And what the student actually needs is the confidence, the skills, the tools, the education to be able to bridge the gap of knowing and being able to get to doing, so that way they can do it on their own for the rest of their life. I'm going to say that again. What the student actually needs is the confidence, the skills, the tools, and the education, so that way they can learn how to be able to bridge the gap between knowing and doing. That way they can bridge that gap on their own for the rest of their life, because health is an infinite game, and inevitably they are going to find themselves back at the position that they started in, because it's an infinite game. And so they need to be able to be equipped with the skills, tools, and education, so that way they don't have to join another program in the future, and they know exactly how to help themselves inside of the infinite game of health. And so ultimately, that is the actual transformation that your program delivers, right? We've talked about this many, many, many times before in the past, right? The gap is where the true value of remote wellness is that bridging the gap between knowing and doing, right? Taking care of all of the obstacles and providing the tools and the skills for the student to be able to bridge this gap on their own, okay? And so when you learn throughout module 5 and 6 how to deliver a program like that, a program that actually fulfills the need of the student and the transformation that they need to make, then you'll be able to make promises like this for your students. You'll be able to say things like, if we decided to work together, then we're going to put in writing and sign that by the end of your 12-week transformation program, you will have all of the knowledge and tools to have permanent health forever, because you will know everything there is to keep the weight off, or example, put in their goal, forever for the rest of your life. You will not need anything else after this program ever again. You will never need a coach ever again, and you could even be your own coach and coach your family after this period of time. And if you chose to stay with us, it's only because you like like the community, you like the support, and want to continue to get even more transformation, okay? If you don't feel that your health and life has been transformed by the end of this, then we will continue to work with you for free until you do, guaranteed. That is the type of promise that you will be able to make so explicitly clear, because you know that based off of Module 5 and Module 6, when you learn how to be able to actually deliver the transformation that we're going to be talking about, you know without a shadow of a doubt that you are delivering exactly and actually what the student needs, okay? Because in the end, your program is about giving them the skills and the tools and the education that they need so that way they can do it themselves, not for you to be able to do it for them. Make sense? Now, I do want to just go ahead and give a big warning and a big caveat here, is that after hearing what it is that I just talked about up here, right? After hearing that, some students are going to want to make this complicated and have a lot of questions. You don't got to make this complicated, and you don't have to have a lot of questions right now, because I'm just giving you a 30,000 foot overview. 100% of this is not going to make sense until all of the pieces come together for you by the end of Module 5. This is me just giving you the overview and planting seeds, and so I just want you to stick with me and understand the overall concept and keep on pushing through the process. And so ultimately, that is the first angle that I wanted to go ahead and answer this question when I say, is this really valuable, right? When you hear about the 3 pillars, that is angle number 1, which is what the student actually needs, okay? The second angle that I want to go ahead and hit this question from is angle number 2, which is the power of your transformation program. So let's go ahead and talk about that right now. So the American Society of Training and Development, they did a study in 2010 on accountability, and they found out that the probability of somebody hitting and completing their goal is 10% if you just have an idea or a goal, 25% if you consciously decide that you're going to do it, 40% if you decide that you're going to do it, 50% if you plan on how you're going to do it, 65% if you commit to someone that you're going to do it, and then 95% if you have a specific accountability appointment with a person that you've committed to. And so this is what the probability of completing a goal looks like visually, depending on what sort of support mechanisms you have in place. It goes from 10% all the way to 95%, okay? Now, I want you to think about this for a second. The likelihood of achieving a goal if you have a specific accountability appointment with a person that you've committed to. The chances of you completing that goal, of hitting that goal, is 95%. That's pretty high, right? And so my question to you is that, do you think that that does not bridge the gap for students between knowing and doing? Do you not think that 95% is good enough in order to help bridge that gap between somebody knowing what it is that they need to do and in order to get them to actually do it? Do you not think that that is valuable for students? Of course it is. But here's the problem. For many beginner RWPs, what they do is they devalue what it is that they are offering, either because they have imposter syndrome, they have lack of confidence, they're fearful, they don't have enough courage right now. All of these things cause them to have a devaluation of what it is that they are offering. They think, man, if this is so simple for me to provide, why would anybody benefit from this? And yet, those same beginner RWPs, what they don't realize is how much of a life-changing impact they are having on their students. As RWP coaches, we don't realize how much of an impact us being in the life of our students actually makes. Having someone in their life that actually cares for them. And so you are going to need to reframe this belief in your head, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how hard you work, it's how valuable the transformation is for the student, okay? And so even though it might not feel like you're working hard, it's the fact that the transformation in and of itself is so valuable for the student, okay? I have to be working hard in order for the student to find my program valuable. I want you to forget that statement completely. Throw it in the trash, throw it out the window. It just simply isn't true. The bottom line is that just the fact that they have committed to your program, that by itself, that in and of itself is enough to be valuable for the student and to be able to help them start that process of the transformation that they want to make in their life. But here's the thing, even after all of that, I still get students who still say, you know what, I'm still worried. Are people going to join my program? Is it really going to be valuable for them? You see, here's the thing. You need to understand that your fear isn't about your student. It isn't about your students. It's about you. right? The whole fear that you have, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Am I providing enough change here? Am I providing enough value? All of these other worries that amateur beginner RWPs have, right? All of that is stemming from your own insecurity, okay? And so this leads these insecure RWP amateur beginners to think, you know what? I got to do a lot for my student in order to be able to prove that I'm good. But here's the truth. The benefit of your program is not just the program. It's also the benefit of the long-term use of your program. Let me go ahead and give you an example of this. Let's say you help your student improve their sleep by just a little bit. Okay, great. No big deal. For a couple of weeks, they got a little bit of better sleep. Okay, not a big deal, right? But guess what? If you help them have better sleep for 6 months, all of a sudden, your life fundamentally changes. And so that small improvement that you made in the short term doesn't really feel like a massive benefit. But then when they are implementing what it is that you have taught them over the course of 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, all of a sudden their life has fundamentally changed in a way that maybe they're not even with you anymore. They finished the program, right? But all of a sudden their life has changed forever. In the same way, right? The benefit of not spiking your blood sugar or crashing your insulin for just one meal, right? But then that's one benefit, right? Just for one meal. But then there's the compounding effect of those results for 50 meals. Well, guess what? That's life-changing. And so this applies to every area of life that you help your student improve. Just by helping your student make a 1% improvement in their life, sure, in one day, in 1 week, that might not mean a lot, right? And so for beginner RWPs, they're judging themselves on like a 1 day, like, okay, I got to get on this session, and this person has to walk away from this session thinking that their entire life has changed. We're talking about a 1% improvement, right? But that 1% improvement over the course of 6 months, guess what? Changes someone's entire trajectory of life. And so yes, there are benefits of the program, and then there are the benefits of the long-term implementation of the program. And so when you begin to work with students, okay, what you need to remember is that small, simple changes will be major ahas for them. You'll be providing enormous value for your students, and you can rest easy knowing that you're doing it right in the way that is right for them. Remember, we talked about this in the previous training. Business and making an income is not about you. It's about what is right for them. It's what's right for the student. And so don't go out there trying to be all selfish and make this about your ego or your insecurity or your lack of confidence or your fear or your imposter syndrome, and then all of a sudden make it all about you, okay? You have to remember this, especially when you are starting out, because every time that you feel the pressure to fix and solve everything for your student on day number 1, this is what you need to remember. You are not trying to change the student's life in one training or in one 45-minute session or one 45-minute coaching call or one 45-minute interaction or even a couple-minute interaction. That's not what it's about. When you do that, what are you actually doing? You're being selfish because you're making it about you, right? That is why in that moment, when you feel the pressure to fix everything about the student and overcompensate for the fact that you lack the confidence and the lack of belief in your value, that is the perfect opportunity for you to ask yourself, who am I being as a remote wellness practitioner? Who am I being as a coach? Why am I feeling insecure? Why am I feeling not enough? Why am I not feeling smart enough? Why am I trying to prove my worth? Because ultimately, this is an issue that has to do with you as the RWP. This is not anything to do with the student. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why remote wellness is such an amazing profession. Why? Because not only do you get to be able to help others with their transformation, but you get to be able to grow and evolve through your own personal transformation while you are also going through your professional transformation. And so in other words, you are on your own personal growth journey while also helping others live their best selves. What could be better than that, right? That is why remote wellness is such an amazing profession. And so with that being said, I do want to go ahead and return back to the question, which is, hey, we've gone through the 3 pillars. Is this really valuable, right? We've gone ahead and answered that question from 2 angles. And so I'm going to go ahead and throw the question back to you. Is this really valuable? I don't know. You tell me, right? Were the 2 angles helpful for you, right? This is going to be the foundation of your mindset game as you start to go out and start launching your remote wellness practice. Because at the end of the day, 80 to 90% of this is going to be a mind game, and it's less about the skills, because we're going to give you the skills, right? But at the end of the day, the character traits and the beliefs that you are embodying, when we talk about your becoming journal, really being able to solidify these things so that way you can fix your broken thinking patterns and actually become successful with this. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Let's go ahead and talk about what is next after this. Now that we understand the 3 pillars of your transformation program and we understand how powerful they actually are, next up, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and talk about the process of how a student actually gets enrolled in your transformation program and how we're actually going to be structuring this module. So let's go ahead and talk about that right now, the process of your transformation program, okay? So before a student joins your transformation program, there is a process that they are going to go through immediately right before actually joining your program, okay? So this process is going to start with a strategy session to see if the student would be a good fit for your program. That's going to be the first step. Then if they join your program, then you're going to have a kickoff call with them in order to actually get them onboarded. And then finally, once they join your program, that is when you're going to go ahead and deliver the transformation via the 3 pillars of your product, right? Training, community, and support. And so this is what it is going to look like from a 30,000 foot overview, strategy session, kickoff call, and then transformation product. Now, what does this mean in terms of the structure of module 5 and this specific module, right? So this module is actually going to be structured in the same way that this process is structured, but in reverse order, okay? So you are first actually going to be learning how to deliver the training inside of your transformation product. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and talk about the kickoff call and how to deliver that. And then finally, we're then going to talk about the initial strategy session and train you on the script and the framework and how to deliver that. And so, yes, we are going to be doing this in reverse order on purpose, right? So first, we're going to talk about the coaching calls, AKA the training. Then we're going to talk about the kickoff call, the KOC. And then we're going to go ahead and talk about the SS, which is a strategy session. Okay. Now, a quick note, you might have been like, whoa, wait a second. What about community and support? So for the other 2 pillars of your program, community and support, we are going to go ahead and talk you through how to set those up click by click later on inside of module 6. But for the purposes of module 5, we're only going to be focusing on the training piece of your product. And then we're going to go ahead and get into community and support inside of module 6. Beautiful. Now, just as we start to go ahead and close out this training, I do have a couple quick mentions, a couple quick notes that I do want to go ahead and walk you through, right? Just a couple quick notes that are important to go ahead and mention before we go ahead and wrap up this 30,000 foot overview of your transformation product and how it works. The first note is students or clients. Do we call our customers clients, students? What are they, right? Now, this is something that we ourselves have gone back and forth on quite a bit. And what we did is we finally decided on calling our customers students. Why? Because we decided that the word client feels more like the company has to serve me because I'm the client versus the student feels like, you know what, the load of the work is on the customer to learn and do the work, and the company is just there to provide the education, it's provide the support structure for that. And so ultimately the word student really puts the customer into a more of a state of openness and learning. And so in our opinion, when we call our customers students, it sends the message that, hey, we're only here to educate and support and provide the, yellow brick road, but it's up to them, the students, in order to actually put in the work. Versus when someone is a client, right, it's as if they are expecting a service that is going to be happening for them. And so we're not here to wash the customer's cars or consult in their business. If we were, then yeah, they would be our clients. And so our customers are inside of a transformation coaching program in which they are learning how to be able to have a transformation in their life, in which they are learning how to bridge the gap between knowing and doing, okay? And that is why we prefer to call our customers students inside of our programs. That is quick mention number 1. Quick mention number 2, real quick, transformation product versus education product. Is our product a transformation product or an education product? Well, some people call transformation products by many names, okay? They call them either alternative education businesses, info products, coaching products, education service products, many other names. Here at RWA, we prefer to call them transformation products because it keeps the main goal top of mind, which is transformation. Unfortunately, in today's marketplace, when some people say, they run an education business or they run an info product business or something like that, unfortunately, what they do in today's marketplace is they just vomit a bunch of information on people, right? They give them maybe a classroom, an online course with a bunch of videos that are hours long, and that's it, right? And so unfortunately, that is the reality that people have done, is hijacked these terms. And so what they do is they make it all about the information rather than about the transformation. And so for that reason, we prefer to call our products transformation products, okay? So what it does is it keeps the focus and priority on what the program primarily does, is that it provides transformation and everything that is required for that transformation, aka the training, the community, and the support. Beautiful. That is quick mention number 2. Quick mention number 3 here real quick. This business model is already proven. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Is that this is what you need to know. This transformation product business model already works hands down. How do we know? Because not only have we done it dozens of times ourselves in multiple businesses, but we've also seen it done hundreds of thousands of times with others in the marketplace. But honestly, the biggest reason that we know this actually works is because society has already been primed for this type of product. Colleges and universities have already indoctrinated society for decades and built massive businesses off of this product type. And so colleges and the college education product costs between $35,000 and $60,000. Yep, it's true. And so imagine having a transformation product that actually delivered on what colleges promised, right? Never mind charging $1,200, $2,400, $3,600 for your program. Forget about that. If you were actually able to deliver the promise that colleges were so-called supposedly providing, you'd be able to charge $35,000, $60,000 for your education product. And so let that sit in for you for a second, okay? Is that maybe right now, you're worrying about the pricing, maybe you're worrying about how this is all going to come together. You're thinking, man, $3,600, that's so expensive. But think about it. There are literally businesses, aka colleges and universities, that sell their quote unquote education products for $35,000, for $60,000. And that's just the average, right? We're talking about certain education companies, aka universities and colleges, charge hundreds of thousands of dollars for their product. And so society has already gotten used to spending money on education. And so for that reason, society is already primed for this type of business model. All we are doing is we are selling alternative education that actually finally delivers the skills and transformation that colleges and universities promised but never actually delivered. Unfortunately, in today's world, somebody can go into college, get hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and come out of college with the same earning potential, with their same ability to provide value as when they started college. They do not learn how to become more valuable to society with that 4-year degree, unfortunately. And yet, after 4 years, they come out with hundreds of dollars in debt and not any more valuable as a human being to society. And that's with college being so expensive. We're talking about thousands of dollars per class, and there being no support and there being no community, okay? And so this new transformation product, the one that we've gone ahead and talked to you about inside of this training, this new transformation product is primed to revolutionize the education market. We're talking about over a $200 billion market. That's not even talking about the $1 trillion wellness industry that we're talking about. We're talking about over a $200 billion industry, because it's only a matter of time until colleges and universities will soon be disrupted with this new form of education product that you are learning about, and the 3 pillars: training, community, and support, because we're actually delivering the value that we provided. We're actually delivering the transformation in a way that colleges and universities have failed to do so. And so that is ultimately the reason why this business model is already proven. And that's why I wanted to go ahead and quickly mention that as well. So that is quick mention number 3. Finally, quick mention number 4. What do I tell people that I do? The answer to this question depends on how much time you want to be busy explaining what it is that you do. And so if you're explaining what it is that you do for the purposes of marketing versus explaining what you do at a dinner party. So most of the time, if someone asks me what I do, I just reply, I run an education company, and they think it's like a school or something like that, right? Why do I do that? Because most of the time, I don't want to have to talk to them about what a transformation business is and how we help people transform their lives and how the business model is already proven and how we're disrupting the education industry and how we're helping people transform their life and all of that kind of stuff. I don't want to have to get into that, okay? As an introvert, most of the time, I don't want to take all of that time to explain all the details of what it is that you just learned about, okay? However, sometimes I will also go a different route and describe what I do as an RWP and reply a little differently as well. So it's like, hey, what do you do? And then sometimes I'll use terms like health coach, health educator, wellness coach, right? All of those are also good ways, kind of layman terms, to look at what it is that we do, right? If I really want to sound cool, that's when I go ahead and use the, education company is what I run. And then if somebody asks, what does that actually mean? Then sometimes I'll throw in there an ad, hey, I help people in their health by helping them not only learn the foundational knowledge in nutrition, movement, sleep, and recharging, but actually helping them do it so that way they can actually have the transformation in their life. And then if somebody asks even more than that, I add on even more details. Hey, we help people identify where they're at right now, version 1.0 self, help them get to their version 2.0 self, help them actually get there. And then if I'm really in it for a conversation and I want to go ahead and add even more details, basically go, hey, basically in today's world, people are overwhelmed with how much information is out there. So we help simplify it and make it actionable for them and help them actually change their lifestyle and habits and thoughts about health so that way they can finally live the life that they actually want. And then I'll go ahead and fill in health with the area of life that I actually specialize in, right? And so ultimately, the answer to this question of what it is that we actually do just depends on how big of a conversation you want to have at a dinner party. But a couple quick notes on this, okay? Note number one is that always talk in plural, okay? You are not a one-person show, you are an organization. Even if it's just you for now, there's a mission behind what it is that you are doing, and we, the RWA family, are the foundation that stands behind you, okay? So when you talk in we, you talk in plural, you're talking from a more dominant frame. Remember we talked about that in reframing? Yes, very important. Note number two is that this is different. This explanation that I went ahead and talked to you about is different than what we explain what we do in marketing, which is what you're going to learn in an upcoming module when you specifically understand what marketing is and how all of that works. But this is just kind of what you do at a dinner party or when you want to just kind of explain what you do in general. Beautiful. So that has been the 4 quick mentions that I wanted to go ahead and talk about: students or clients, transformational product versus education product. This business model is already proven. And what do I tell people I do? And so with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are going ahead and concluding this training about your transformation product. I want to go ahead and walk you through your engagement question for this training. Question number 1, hey, what are your thoughts about this training? Number 2, what did you like and enjoy about this training? How does it feel to start seeing the pieces of everything starting to come together? And what were some of your biggest takeaways or ahas from this training? Again, just a reminder, don't provide lazy answers. We love to see your engagement and your feedback, what it is that you are getting out of every single training. And then on top of that, really cementing in your mind what were some of your biggest takeaways as well. And then finally, your action steps for this specific training, pretty straightforward. Number 1, watch and study this training in full. Make sure that you go ahead and do that. And then action step number 2, make sure you go ahead and complete the engagement questions for this training, the ones that we just went ahead and talked about above, 3 of them. And so with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the training on your transformation product. I am super pumped. You can see it's all coming together. I can't wait for you to continue going through module 5. With that being said, I will catch you inside of the next training.